Well, Verinder Grover is an Indian Supreme Court lawyer and a human rights activist who has appeared in landmark cases and represented victims and survivors of sexual violence. She joins us this hour from the capital, New Delhi. Verinder, very good to have you on the show. Thank you very much. I want to start with task force, whose members have been named. I'm wondering if you think that the people in the task force are right. They're mostly very senior and experienced doctors, no lawyers there. Is it a right start, you think?
I think the task force mandate is to garner what are the specific concerns, what are the vulnerabilities, where are the lacunae structurally, legally, and then to present that to the concerned department to put together something. So right now, it does have representation from very senior persons in the medical fraternity. I assume skills of others, like lawyers, would be required. I do think, however, that it must collect information from nurses, from healthcare workers who are not doctors, because those at the lower ranks are perhaps even more vulnerable. But it's a start.
I was listening to an interview you did a few days ago, Verinder, and you said, we live in a sick society. This is not just a case of a few bad apples. And you pointedly said the state needs to institutionalize safety mechanisms for women. Why haven't those mechanisms been put in place? Is this a money issue? Is it a budget issue?
It's not at all a budgetary issue because what is required, even if we go back to the Kolkata incident, what was required? A resting room where a doctor or a nurse on a 36-hour shift in a hospital can safely and securely take a little bit of a nap. That does not require any money for a government hospital at all. It is a situation where government, the state, across the country, there is no concern. Women are not thought of as equal citizens participating in the economics of the country, participating in the larger production. Women are increasingly joining the workforce, both as professionals as well as in the informal workforce. They've always been there. It's both a complete callousness towards women, as well as having no sensitivity or understanding of the needs of women. And there are laws in place. The Constitution mandates it. It's about enforcing those laws and listening to what the women are saying.
Verinder, various leaders, including the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, and the West Bengal Chief Minister, have come out to say all the right things about the case, but alluding to what you were just talking about earlier. Is there political will to address this whole issue of violence against women at all levels?
I'm afraid women's concerns have been reduced in this country now for over a decade to political snowboarding and competitive politics. And we are losing because of that. While protests of this kind, following horrible incidents, are able to attract national attention, what will sustain the change? That is what is required. And for that, you need political will and you need social consensus to change society, to look at women as equal human beings and equal citizens. That is work to be done within society, and political will to enforce laws that are in place and to institutionalize safety and freedom mechanisms. Doctors today, because the victim is a doctor, but it could be anybody else. And we already have other cases coming in from other parts of the country.
The 2012 gang rape case, it triggered reforms, right? A broader definition of rape, tougher punishments. And I understand that you actually helped draft the 2013 criminal law amendment to the law against sexual assault. You've said, though, that the deterrence value of the death penalty is zero. How, then, can penalties become an effective tool, Verinder?
Well, there is no certainty of punishment in India. And while in 2024, men were hanged for the 2012 incident, and law has set what is an offense, what is wrong in the conduct of men, has been stated by the law explicitly, which sometimes societies need to state formally and explicitly. However, we do not have certainty of punishment. Even today, women walking into the police station are not assured that their complaints will be registered. Very often, that is determined by the status, the socio-economic status of the woman, as well as the profile of the perpetrator. And that is where the political class needs to step in. We find the political class, depending on who the perpetrator is, providing them positions of authority, shielding them. You can't have occasional rage and anger against sexual violence. The protest will be occasional, but the work of the state is to ensure that there is certainty of punishment in each case, and we have not seen that.
Verinder, I want to ask you about some of the institutional shortcomings that you were talking about earlier. In particular, institutions like the police. I mean, there are various reports that cite a lack of trust in local police who apparently don't take, or don't always take sexual assault cases seriously, especially in rural areas. I mean, is that an important starting point for you?
Absolutely, because what will trigger the legal system is if the complaint is acknowledged and registered. And it's not peculiar to rural areas, unfortunately. It's across the board. First, sexual assault is not considered, even today, as a serious crime unless it is accompanied by severe brutality. Secondly, it's invariably the biases, the prejudices, the rape myths that has the woman provoked, invited the trouble. Who is the woman? What is her conduct? Investigation continues to be mired with that. Not just investigation, we see that haunting the entire legal adjudication process. While orientation, training of police has to be done over and over again, but there also has to be accountability. If the policeman fails to perform his duty as per law, there are measures in place how they are to be held accountable, but those are not enforced because there seems to be sanction for certain kinds of sexual violence. You can't have sanction for some forms of violence against women and suddenly expect the policeman to register certain forms of complaints that women come with. So those are areas where in the last 10 years, we have not actually seen the state invest its resources.
The experience of women, many sexual violence cases in India remain unreported. There's the cumbersome process, tough questioning by police, stigma, trauma. What do you think can be done to make the reporting process less daunting and to encourage more victims to come forward?
Well, as I said, there will have to be a lot of orientation. We are a society that unfortunately is hierarchical in nature, not just on grounds of class, but also of caste, which is a deeply entrenched discriminatory attitude. Then issues of the nature of work the woman does. All those are hurdles that have to be crossed before the police addresses the complaint. The system needs to ensure that if the police is not doing its work, it entails some consequences. The consequences can be punitive, they can be administrative in nature, but there must be consequences. And because there is a lot of sanction from the political superiors, we don't see that change. And it really has impunity is today entrenched in the Indian criminal system. And therefore, a criminal legal system, until and unless we start ensuring that on each occasion, there will be a certainty of process. Whatever be the result must be as per law, and the legal process must maintain its sanctity. But the woman must be assured that if I step forward and make the complaint, and that is a difficult decision for any woman to take in India, even today, given, as you mentioned, the social stigma, etc., that is attached to it. We have to address impunity at each level.
Verinder, we thank you very much for raising some very important issues and points. We are out of time, I'm afraid. We thank you very much. Verinder Grover is lawyer with the Supreme Court of India. Thanks very much for joining us.